to Senator Bob Onder, who's gotten a break from his Senate duties down there in Jefferson City and giving us a call here. Senator, how are you?
I am doing great. It's a great day.
Well, I had a great time visiting with you during inaugural ball activities this past week. That was a good time.
Well, it sure was. And, the governor got off to a great start. He signed an ethics executive order that day. A couple of days later, signed an executive order putting a moratorium on all new regulations issued by his departments. So off to a great start, and we're off to a great start in the Senate as well.
I'll bet you are. Now, when we spoke the other day, you mentioned that right to work and I think prevailing wage, a couple of key issues were going to go through your committee.
Yes, that's right. In fact, yesterday in the General Laws Committee, my committee, we heard two bills. One was right to work, and one was about paycheck protection.
Okay.
And we had great hearings on those. Those were both bills by Senator Dan Brown from Rolla, and I expect we'll be acting on those bills very soon.
So let's talk for a moment about what's contained in there, because it's been a while since we've had the debate about paycheck protection. What does that do? Specifically?
Yeah, what paycheck protection does is requires that before government agencies withhold money from an employee's paycheck for union dues or for political contributions, that government agency get annual authorization from the employee to do so. So instead of the employee just having the money taken out and have to work to get it back, he has to give his government employer annual authorization to withhold that money.
So it doesn't affect private employers?
Does not. Yeah,
okay.
Paycheck protection is having to do with public sector employees.
So right to work for a moment. Whenever I mention that on this radio show, the phone lines light up. There are a lot of folks who are union members who are told by their union that this is the worst thing that could ever happen in the state of Missouri. Can you kind of detail what this bill looks like? I mean, I think I have a general idea of what it would do, but I want to make sure I fully understand it.
Well, basically, right to work really takes nothing away from unions other than the right to get an employee fired for refusing to join or pay dues to the union. So in other words, right now in states that are not right to work, or some call them forced union states, there are many of the union contracts, I would say most of the contracts, have what are sometimes called agency fee clauses that say that everybody who works in that workplace either has to be a member and pay dues to the union, or they cannot be a member, but they still have to pay dues to that union. And so I think right to work, I just think that's wrong morally, and it also has held our state back. We have not. When we were debating right to work in 2015 in the Missouri Senate, that very day, a Volvo plant located in South Carolina, it's going to be a total of, when it's all completed, it's well on its way, $1 billion project. It's going to create 4,000 great-paying jobs. We weren't even in consideration for that plant in Missouri because we are not a right-to-work state. So right now, just over the weekend, Kentucky became the 27th right-to-work state. I hope to make Missouri the 28th right-to-work state this year.
That's a good point. My argument has been that for people who feel like it is threatening their particular union, I mean, it doesn't really address, obviously, collective bargaining agreements are covered by federal law. It doesn't affect existing collective bargaining agreements, correct?
Well, it wouldn't. It wouldn't because of a provision in the Missouri Constitution. It wouldn't prevent. It wouldn't affect. It wouldn't. In other words, no one could say, okay, Missouri, you passed right to work in March. I want my due. A non-member who was paying dues to the union anyway. They couldn't say, I want my last 3 years of union dues back. But going forward, workers would have a right to keep their job and not be fired for refusing to pay dues or what the unions like to call agency fees to the union.
Yeah, I know that a bill passed over in the House as well. How close would you say we are to this becoming law?
Well, I think we're pretty close. In the House on Tuesday, they held their hearing. They may, as we speak, they may have already voted that bill out of committee. In the House, they have a couple of levels of committee that a bill goes through before it gets to the floor. In the Senate, we're likely to be voting on right to work very shortly, and then it goes to the floor. We could just be weeks away from being the 28th right to work state.
Interesting. I saw that one of the first things that Governor, I have to get used to saying that, Governor Greitens did was he put out a video of himself signing an executive order freezing all state regulations and preventing any more from being added. I wondered if that wasn't largely symbolic. I mean, are there that many regulations waiting to take effect that he was able to stop?
Well, yeah, all of the agencies are continuously promulgating regulations, and some of them are good. Some of them are to promulgate good laws that the legislature passed in the past, but others are not so good and really interfere with the ability of businesses or farmers or just ordinary citizens to live their lives. So no, I think it's I liked the symbolism. But I think it is a good thing, and essentially what he said is that any further regulations that the departments make will have to be directly approved by his office before they take effect, and that makes sense because he was elected by us as governor, and he really the executive should be overseeing executive branch regulations. So I thought that was a very good move, both symbolically and practically.
Talking to Senator Bob Onder from District 2, covering parts of St. Charles County. Senator, already, and as I suspected, my phones have started ringing. People want to talk about right to work. Here are a couple questions they posed, if you don't mind me getting back to that for just a minute.
Sure. Oh, no.
One of the questions is, the caller wants to know, does average pay go up in right to work states? Have you seen any research on that?
Yeah. Well, one thing I do want to point out too is not only is the right to work a pro worker rights measure, but it also in many states, including Indiana, which passed right to work in 2015, union jobs as well as other jobs increase after the enactment of right to work. But the fact is, yes, if you compare average pay in right to work states in the Midwest versus non-right to work states in the Midwest, over the past 15 years in right to work states, average pay has grown up private sector employee compensation has gone up 17%, whereas in forced unionization or non-right to work states, that same number is only 2.5%. So yes, what a lot of times you hear from the union bosses is that average pay in non-right to work states is higher, and that actually is true. But when you compare cost of living and adjust for the cost of living in California or Massachusetts or New York compared to living in some of the southern or southwestern or western states, that analysis favors the right to work states. And as I mentioned, growth in average pay has been faster in right to work states, and especially here in the Midwest, which is why many of our fellow Midwestern states like Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin have chosen to do right to work, get their states moving again.
Yeah, and one more question. A caller wants to know, if you choose not to join a union, is the union forced to represent you anyway under right to work?
Okay, the union will have to represent non-members only if the union negotiates a exclusive representation contract with the employer. In other words, The answer to that question is only if the union chooses to continue to do so. In general, unions do want monopoly control of the workforce in a given workplace. But that is not a requirement of federal law. It's very clear under federal law that unions can represent members only when they negotiate their contracts with management.
Interesting. I appreciate your input on this. I knew you were knowledgeable on the subject, and look forward to more details as things move along.
I think there will be lots of news in the weeks ahead, Mark. I'd be happy to be on anytime.
Senator Bob Onder, thanks for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too, Mark. Drive safely.
You too. Thank you. Hope you get back this afternoon and don't have to fight that mess tomorrow. Senator Bob Onder, District 2 there, covering parts of St. Charles County. So his committee just pushed right to work out of his subcommittee, and it's moving along in the Senate now, just like the corresponding bill over in the House. We should know soon when those are going to get voted on. 314-969-9797 went over a little bit on that segment. Still hoping to get Catherine Herridge from Fox News when we come back.
They got a lot of nice girls.
This is the Mark Cox Show.